A very good morning or afternoon to everyone who's watching right now. Today, we from Group 7 will be presenting the finding of our assignment for the course BKAFK1023 Introduction to Financial Accounting, taught by our beloved lecturer, Dr. Muhammad Rimli bin Ramlan. And without further ado, let's just begin. First and foremost, I would like to introduce the group member of Group 7. First, we have me, Tang Wei Jiang, also acting as the group leader. Secondly, we have Jason Paul Ziwen. Thirdly, we have Tara Niswaran anak lelaki Perumal. In fourth, we have Rasan Rao anak lelaki Baskar Rao. And lastly, we have Abida Durina binti Suhaimi. And we also listed out the tasks we have done individually for the assignment, so you can pause the video to look at it more clearly. Now, I would like to introduce the two companies that we have selected for our assignment. First and foremost, we have KOSSAN BERHAD or KOSSAN Rubber Industry BERHAD. It is founded by Tan Sri Dato Lee Kuan Sia in 1979 and have a market capitalization of 3.16 billion ringgit. KOSSAN BERHAD have around 5,930 number of employees and their headquarters is located in Shah Alam. The main activity of KOSSAN BERHAD is primarily engaged in the manufacture, sales, and export of rubber products, and they produce around 32 billion pieces of glove annually. KOSSAN BERHAD is the second largest glove producer in the world, just behind Top Glove. KOSSAN BERHAD have subsidiaries such as Quality Profile, Gibbon Corporation, Cleanera, and many more. Now, the second company we have selected for our assignment is KPS BERHAD. KPS BERHAD is also known as Kumpulan Perangsang Selangor BERHAD. It is founded in 1975 with their CEO being Ahmad Faris bin Hassan. Their market capitalization is 343.93 million ringgit and they have around 3,520 number of employees. Their headquarters is also located in Shah Alam, the same as KOSSAN. However, their activities is primarily engaged in the manufacturing, trading, licensing, infrastructure sectors, primarily in manufacturing E&E products as well as your water utility industry. KPS is a Selangor state-owned company, making it a GLC. KPS have subsidiaries such as Perangsang Dynamic, Perangsang Packaging, and many more. A fun fact about KPS BERHAD is that KPS BERHAD won the Malaysia Best Employer Brand Awards in 2024. Now I'll be introducing the four types of financial ratios that we'll be using to analyze the financial performance of those two companies that we have selected for our assignment. First and foremost, we have liquidity ratio, which is the financial metrics that measures a company's abilities to pay off its short-term financial obligations or liabilities due within a year using its current assets. Secondly, we have activity ratio, which is a financial metrics that measures how effective a company uses its asset to generate revenue, sales, or cash. Thirdly, we have profitability ratio, which is a financial metric that measure a company's success in generating profit in relation to its revenue, assets, operating cost of shareholder investment. Lastly, we have leverage ratio, which measures how much a company relies on debt to finance its asset or operation as compared to its own resources like equity. As we know that asset is equal to liability plus equity, which means that liability or equity will be used to finance the asset that will be required for the company operations.
Now I will explain about the liquidity ratio, which include the current ratio and the quick ratio. First, the current ratio. This ratio helps us measure whether a company is able to pay off its short-term obligation using its current assets. The formula is current asset divided by current liabilities. Next is the quick ratio. This ratio shows how well a company can meet its immediate short-term obligation using its most liquid asset. The formula is current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities. Now let's look at the current ratio of the two companies, KOSSAN Rubber Industry and KPS BERHAD. For KOSSAN, the current assets are 2.497 billion and the current liabilities are 306 million. When we divide this amount, KOSSAN has a current ratio of 8.15. Meanwhile, KPS has current assets of 837 million and liabilities of 345 million. This gives KPS a current ratio of 2.43. Based on the comparison, both companies show a good ability to pay off current obligation. However, KOSSAN's current ratio is much higher at 8.15 times compared to KPS, which is only 2.43 times. This means that KOSSAN holds 8.15 of current asset for every 1 ringgit liability, while KPS holds only 2.43 for every 1 ringgit liability. So, overall, KOSSAN clearly has a stronger liquidity position and a better current ratio than KPS. For the quick ratio, looking at the calculation, KOSSAN's quick ratio is 7.36, while KPS has 2.08. What does this tell us? A ratio above 1 is good. KOSSAN 7.36 means it has 7.36 of liquid assets for every 1 ringgit of liabilities. This means both companies can easily pay their short-term debts without selling inventory. The higher the ratio, the better the liquidity position. Now let's compare them visually. As you can see from the bar chart, KOSSAN clearly has a higher quick ratio than KPS, which is 7.36 compared to 2.08. The key takeaway here is that while both companies are in good shape, KOSSAN has the stronger ability to pay off its current liabilities with quick assets. This means better overall liquidity and financial flexibility for KOSSAN. Then let's look at activity ratio. This measures how efficiently companies use their asset. First, total asset turnover shows how well a company uses its assets to generate sales. The formula is revenue divided by average total assets. Second, account receivable turnover measures how many times a company collects payment from customer in a year. It's calculated as revenue divided by average trade receivable. These ratios help us understand operational efficiency. Higher numbers generally mean better performance.
First, we look at the total asset turnover. For KOSSAN has a total asset turnover of 0.46, means that for every 1 ringgit of asset, the company will generate a 0.46 ringgit in revenue. For company KPS, has a higher ratio of 0.57, showing that every 1 ringgit of asset, KPS will generate the 0.57 ringgit in the revenue. Okay, in this comparison, we can look for KPS is more efficient in using its assets to generate the shelf. The KOSSAN have a lower turnover that can also be linked to the post-COVID situation where growth demand dropped and causing it asset to be underutilized. Okay, now we look at the account receivable turnover. For company, the first is KOSSAN. The KOSSAN record a turnover of 6.56 times, means that collect its receivable much faster and convert them into the cash more frequently throughout the year. For company KPS, record only 3.55 times, showing a slower collection and more cash tied up in the receivable. Okay. For this comparison, we can indicate that KOSSAN has a better working capital management as it is more effective in collecting credits sale compared to the KPS. Okay, now we look the profitability ratio. The first we look at profit margin on sale first. The company of KOSSAN achieved a profit margin of 6.30%, means it earned 0.063 ringgit of net profit for every 1 ringgit of sale. For company of KPS that achieved a slightly higher margin of 6.87%, earning RN 0.0687 ringgit for every 1 ringgit of sale. Okay, in this show that KPS is more efficient in controlling the cost and converting revenue into the profit, as it generate a higher profit margin than the KOSSAN. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, now let's have a look on return on common shareholders' equity. Constant return on common shareholder equity of 3.21% means that it is generating 3.21 cents for every ringgit Malaysia one of shareholders' equity. Meanwhile, for KPS, it's 6.28%, that means that is generating a profit of 6.28 cents for every ringgit Malaysia one of shareholders' equity. What we can see here is KPS is currently doing a better job of generating profit for every dollar of shareholder capital on a stable basis. Since KPS provides a higher and more stable return where the company is generating a profit of 6.28% cents for every ringgit Malaysia one of shareholder equity. Meanwhile, KOSSAN is generating a lower return of 3.21 cents for every ringgit Malaysia one of shareholders equity. Now let's have a look at leverage ratio. Debt to asset. KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad has a debt-to-asset ratio of 0.11:1, which means that for every Ringgit Malaysia won of total assets KOSSAN holds, 0.11 cents is financed by debt. Meanwhile, for KPS Berhad, it has a 0.30:1 debt-to-asset ratio, which means every Ringgit Malaysia won eh, that KPS holds, 0.30 cents is financed by debt. From what we can see here is KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad has a lower and better debt-to-asset ratio compared to KPS Berhad, which consists of 0.30:1 for KPS Berhad and 0.11:1 for KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad. We all should know that with a lower debt-to-asset ratio, KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad is considered a low-risk investment. The most important part is the lower the ratio, the better the company's performance and financial flexibility. Now let's have a look at debt to equity. KOSSAN has a 0.02:1 of debt to equity, which means that for every ringgit Malaysia won of funding contributed by shareholders' equity, KOSSAN gives 0.02 of debt. Meanwhile, for KPS, Berhad is 0.17:1, which means for every ringgit Malaysia won of funding contributed by shareholders' equity, KPS uses 0.17 of debt. Finally, last not the least, KOSSAN has a lower and better debt to equity ratio than KPS Berhad. This is because the higher the ratio, the higher the level of debt compared to equity. KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad has a 0.02:1, while KPS Berhad has 0.17:1, which means KOSSAN Rubber Industries Berhad has a better debt to equity ratio. That's all from me. Thank you. Have a good day.
Table of summary for all financial ratios. So financial ratios are current ratios, quick ratios, total asset turnover, receivable turnover, profit margin on sales, return on common shareholder equity, debit to asset ratios, debit to equity ratios. So we're finding our two companies, KOSSAN Rubber Industry Berhad and KPSS Berhad. Okay. So first of all, current ratio is 8.15 times, KPS is 2.43 times. For KOSSAN, again 7.36 times, KPS 2.08 times. For total asset turnover, KOSSAN 0.46 times, for KPS 0.57 times. For receivable turnover, KOSSAN 6.56 times and KPS 3.55 times. For profit margin on sales, KOSSAN 6.30% and KPS is 6.87%. For return of common shareholder equity, KOSSAN is 3.27% and KPS is 6.87%. For debit to asset ratios, KOSSAN is 0.11 times and KPS is 0.30 times. For debit to equity ratio, KOSSAN 0.02 times, KPS 0.17 times. So from the table, we know as for current ratio, quick ratio, total receivable turnover, debit to asset, debit to equity, KOSSAN is better than KPS. KOSSAN have a better liquidity and leverage ratios. For the total asset turnover, profit margin on sales, return on a common shareholder equity, KPS is better than KOSSAN. KPS has a better profitability ratio. For activity ratio, they both have each better than others. How to improve company's performance based on their ratios? So first we see on the KOSSAN Berhad. KOSSAN Berhad is liquidity. So current ratio 8.15x and quick ratio 7.36x excessive liquidities. So too much cash tied up plus opportunity costs. Fixed invest excessive funds in automation, capitation expensive, and product innovation, improve inventory control. Asset effective. Total asset turnover 0.46 times below than KPS 0.57x. Indicates until plants or machinery. Fixed review and dispose or list the ideal asset, upgrade equipments, automate processes. Profitable. Profit margin 6.3%, less than KPS 6.87%. So fixed negotiate raw materials better apply for lean production, improve effective, shift to high margin product, example medical gloves, specialist rubbers. Return on margin, sorry, return on equity. Ratio is 3.27% versus KPS 6.28%. So very low debit to equity, 0.2 minimum leverage, fixed interest model to control debit to fund growth, the insurance retirement. So on the how to improve on company's performance based on ratio in KPS Berhad is KPS Berhad is the key finding receivable management. So receivable turnover 3.5x slower than KOSSAN 6.56x. So cash collection is lower, more cash flow is increased. Fixed tighter credit items, digital investment, early payment, discounts, customers credit review. Financial leverage. Debit to equity 0.17 up to management but higher risk than KOSSAN. Fixed borrow only for revenue product producing projects, monitoring loans, bill to cash buffet. Okay, conclusion on that. Both KOSSAN and KPS shows unique strengths, with KOSSAN excelling in liquidity and debit control, and KPS in effective and profitable. However, each must key weakness. KOSSAN is asset utilization and KPS in credit control and debit management to remain competitive. By strengthening these areas, both companies can achieve more sustainable and reasonable long-term growth. Last Thank you for watching from Group 7. Thank you.